Seth Rollins, Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns in a triple threat match at Payback. I mean, really, do we have to see the same thing over and over and over? At least Seth Rollins versus Sting, although it may feel like The Rock versus CM Punk from 2013, 2 years ago to many wrestling fans, at least it's a reprieve and it's something different, and I would go for that. Sting versus John Cena is a reprieve. Sting versus Randy Orton is a reprieve, and it fits perfectly with their face-to-face when Sting came out to help Randy Orton against the Authority shortly after Randy Orton made his return going into WrestleMania and his match with Seth Rollins. It fits perfectly. Randy Orton beats Seth Rollins for the title. Let's have Randy Orton as champion going up against Sting. Let's have Randy Orton revert back to being the legend killer from 2003, 2004, and kill the one legend that he's never killed before, Sting, with Sting probably coming out on top with Randy Orton trying to kill the legacy of Sting. There's so many ways you can approach Sting's return in a more effective way than having him being brought in to lose out of Brock to Triple H. What about Brock Lesnar versus Sting? That would be a great match too. Paul Heyman referenced that in a promo going into the Royal Rumble. What about Sting versus Brock Lesnar? Make Sting the number one contender to Brock Lesnar's title if Brock Lesnar ever regains it. I mean, there are so many possibilities, just as many possibilities for Sting's return than there was for Brock Lesnar's return back in 2012. Remember that big list of names Brock Lesnar had suggested to face when he returned? Randy Orton was one of them, Kane was one of them, The Undertaker was one of them. We got so many on the list, and so many of them we didn't. And the same sort of list can be presented with Sting's return. There are so many names Sting could create with in the WWE, names he's wrestled with before and names he has yet to wrestle with, like Randy Orton, John Cena being names who's never faced Sting, and names like Kevin Nash or Hulk Hogan who have faced Sting more times than enough. I mean, there are so many people that Sting could create with in a wrestling ring, and there's nobody that can tell me that Kevin Nash could not get in the ring with Sting, because Kevin Nash is still wrestling on the independents. So he could very easily wrestle with Sting in the WWE ring for one time's sake only, in my opinion, and give us this match as a creation in the WWE ring. I mean, Sting is someone who you can create endless possibilities with. The possibilities with Sting are endless. That's why I want to see Sting in the WWE ring wrestling against names he's wrestled with before, either wrestling with them, teaming with them, or facing names that he's never wrestled with before. An example would be Sting versus John Cena, or I don't know, Sting versus Randy Orton, or Sting versus Randy Orton versus John Cena in a triple threat match. Throw Roman Reigns in there or Seth Rollins. Make it a fatal four-way. That way you can combine what's happening with a new talent initiative and throw Sting in there as an experienced veteran. That would generate pay-per-view buy rates and up the subscribers to the network, because people would be wanting to see Sting wrestling on pay-per-view. But the thing is, on average, people like Sting and The Undertaker are wrestling once every 6 months on a pay-per-view, and that's usually at WrestleMania or SummerSlam. The obvious date we're going to see Sting again would be SummerSlam, in a big match, in a rematch with Triple H, or in a match with someone like John Cena, and I would love to see that, especially with the venue of this year's SummerSlam being New York, New Jersey, or rather Brooklyn, New York, which is a really hardcore wrestling place to be, in my opinion, is the word I'm searching for a SummerSlam pay-per-view. That would be great. There would be a lot of great wrestling psychology examined in a match with Sting, say, and John Cena at SummerSlam 2015 in New York, in Brooklyn, New York. That would be great for wrestling fans to see, and I would go for that match, Sting versus John Cena, or Sting versus anyone at SummerSlam, with how much Sting's future in WWE has been discussed in the fall of WrestleMania 31, because right now, the reason why we're seeing so much conversation for Sting's return and who Sting will face next, when, where, and how Sting is going to compete is because of how he lost at WrestleMania 31 and how his future looks very bleak. And I'm not going to deny that Sting's future looks very bleak, because it does look very bleak. I'm not going to defend how Sting's future looks more probable than what it looks right now, because his future does look very bleak, especially with how we have legends like The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar wanting to slow it down as much as what they have. I mean, The Undertaker wrestles, once a year now at WrestleMania for one sake of a match every year. He gives us one match at WrestleMania. His future has never looked more bleak and more uncertain. Obviously, the direction for The Undertaker, now that his streak is gone and tarnished, with Brock Lesnar defeating him with a concussion in 3 F5s, is to have a retirement match against Sting next year at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas. And there's something about this venue for Texas and Dallas, the venue of WrestleMania 32, in my opinion, is where we're going to see something done with The Undertaker. We're going to get to that point of finality. There's something about WrestleMania taking place next year in Dallas, Texas, that fits perfectly with The Undertaker versus Sting. That's why I'm leaning more so towards the direction of Sting versus Undertaker, with or without the significance of the championship being on the line. If we do see Seth Rollins versus Sting come before the Undertaker-Sting match, I really don't care. With or without the significance of the championship, a retirement match for The Undertaker would fit perfectly with the venue. There's no better place to have it. With the history of The Undertaker and Sting both being very notable in Texas, that would be great. And if we don't see it at WrestleMania 32 next year, we could see something with Sting as early as SummerSlam taking place in Brooklyn, New York this year, which is one of the more hardcore places for a match to happen. You have very hardcore wrestling fans in New York, just as many hardcore wrestling fans in New York than you do for Philadelphia. So there's a lot that can be done with Sting's character, no matter if it happens at SummerSlam or we don't get it until next year at WrestleMania 32. I just believe we have not seen the last of a character like Sting, especially with how many diverse wrestling fans we have out there and the diversity that Sting has had, the response of Sting coming out of WWE. There's been a lot of diversity. Some fans are for Sting being with WWE. The other percentage of fans are not so much for Sting being with WWE. Some fans believe, Sting being with WWE is the greatest thing ever. Some fans believe that Sting coming to WWE has been definitely watered down from what it would have been probably 10 years ago if he would have been involved in the invasion angle. A lot of people wondering why Sting was not involved with that invasion angle back in 2001. Obviously, it was because the hatred that existed between Sting, Vince McMahon, and Triple H was very real. It was very legit, and it's only died now, and that's why Sting has showed up in WWE, because he realizes there's no big game in town for him to go to. There's no more WCW. There's no more ECW, and I think the loyalty issue for Sting was one of the biggest reasons why we didn't see him in WWE sooner than what we got Sting in WWE. 14 years after the purchase of WCW, here comes Sting, when we didn't hear from him or see him in WWE for years, and now he has this hatred towards Triple H built up over all these years, working with TNA, seeing him on the independents. Now he's on a major level platform wrestling against names like Triple H and John Cena. Now he has a desire to compete in WWE and get high off the WWE universe, because he kicked off Raw the week before WrestleMania, and he said, this is what it feels like to be in a WWE ring in front of thousands of fans. He got high off that. And I think that after that adrenaline rush, I think Sting realized what he was missing out on all these years. He kicked off Raw the week before WrestleMania. He said, this is what it feels like to be in front of all of you. And I think that Sting's going to miss it. That's one of the more important things to look at here. With Sting gone, I think he's going to miss that high. And I think he's going to crave that high. Now that he realizes, what he'd missed out on all these years, he's going to want to get in the ring with the champions of Seth Rollins and John Cena and the Rusevs. He's going to want to get in the ring with the legends like Kevin Nash and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and them again. I'd love to see Sting versus Shawn Michaels. That would be great too. But after getting that high, experiencing it for the first time, kicking off Raw the way he did 6 days before WrestleMania 31 in his match with Triple H, Sting is going to want that again. He's going to want to experience that again, and there's no better way for him to experience it than by having a match with Seth Rollins or having it with another legend, which obviously will be with The Undertaker or somebody along those lines ever before it's with anyone else. I mean, who out there doesn't want to see Sting versus The Undertaker? There are these idiots out there that say that Sting versus The Undertaker will never happen because of how loyal they were to their respective brands, how Sting represented WCW for all those years, and how The Undertaker remained loyal and true to WWE, especially during the Monday Night War. He was the one guy who never left during the Monday Night War and remained true to WWE, waiting for his opportunity to arise, which eventually came years after. But I really think, no matter how loyal they were to WWE and WCW during the war, I think we will see this match. People will come up with the scenario Sting and The Undertaker are a better team than they would be foes. But I mean, look at the similarities of Sting and The Undertaker, and look at how similar they are, and look at the ratings, and look at the buy rates at pay-per-views. Look what we would be missing out on if we didn't see The Undertaker versus Sting. This is gold. If there ever was a golden opportunity in professional wrestling, the golden opportunity has been presented with Sting versus The Undertaker at SummerSlam, at WrestleMania, at Survivor Series, wherever in the fuck it's going to happen. This is a golden opportunity that we can't miss out on. We've missed out on it for years. If we can see The Rock versus Goldberg in a watered-down match, or Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, or John Cena versus The Rock 100 times over, then there's room for Sting versus The Undertaker. This is the one dream match that we've talked about in our written columns, talked about in our video blogs on YouTube channels, but we have never, ever seen because of animosity that's existed between Sting and WWE for years. It's time to bury that animosity and get on with Sting versus The Undertaker. If we're going to have a decisive phenom, it's time to determine it, especially with The Undertaker putting in over 25 years, 26 years this coming 2016 for WrestleMania 32, and after 25 years being punched by The Undertaker, just as many being punched by Sting at 58 years of age, I think it's time for the veterans to go head-to-head, give them the main event of WrestleMania 32, put the championship match on first to Sting versus Undertaker, and give them the main event. Sting's at 58 years of age. The Undertaker's got to be close to 60 if he's not. So put a 58-year-old up against a close to 60-year-old veteran, and you will have a great match. I don't doubt The Undertaker versus Sting in performance level. When you talk about performance, I think this would be a great match to have. It would definitely outperform any match on a WrestleMania card, even the championship match, and that says a lot with the skill that Brock Lesnar brings to the WWE, or any legend brings to a WrestleMania show every year. I don't doubt the performance levels of Sting versus The Undertaker. I've been a diehard fan of both. I've compared both of them in terms of style, in terms of their appearance,